This episode is brought to you by Accenture. When your advertising operations fall out of sync, everything else follows. Spotify and Accenture are working together to reinvent the rhythm of ad sales, using automation, analytics, and smarter workflows to simplify campaign delivery and access better data across the business. The result? Less time spent on operations, more time connecting brands with the moments and fandoms that matter most. Learn more at accenture.com/Spotify.
The new LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't undo your last hire, the no-show. Who set you back because they didn't show up on day one, or day two, or ever again. And now your product launch is delayed because you're talking to alien abduction podcasters to track them down. But LinkedIn Hiring Pro can help make sure your next hire sticks. In fact, businesses who use LinkedIn are 24% less likely to reopen a role in the next 12 months. Hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/quality.
Morning decisions. How about a creamy mocha frappuccino drink? Or sweet vanilla? Smooth caramel maybe? Or a white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Find Starbucks Frappuccino drinks wherever you buy your groceries.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.
The right window treatments change everything. Your sleep, your privacy, the way every room looks and feels. At Blinds.com, we've spent 30 years making it surprisingly simple to get exactly what your home needs. We've covered over 25 million windows and have 50,000 five-star reviews to prove we deliver. Whether you DIY it or want a pro to handle everything from measure to install, we have you covered. Real design professionals, free samples, zero pressure. Right now, get up to 50% off with minimum purchase, plus get a free professional measure at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions apply.
Welcome to the Peak Performance Podcast. I'm Brad Young, and this show exists for one reason: to go deeper than the surface level fitness content flooding your feed. Each episode is a focused, research-backed, experience-tested conversation about what it actually takes to perform at your highest level across training, recovery, mindset, and the science shaping how we understand the human body. No fluff, no shortcuts, just the real work and the thinking behind it. The psychology of staying power, not just motivation, but the science of long-term consistency, exploring identity, resilience, cognitive endurance, and the mental frameworks elite performers use to stay committed for years, not weeks. The consistency problem. Here's a question I come back to constantly, both in my own life and in every serious performance conversation I have. Why do some people sustain extraordinary levels of effort, commitment, and progress for years and decades, through setbacks, through plateaus, through circumstances that would derail most people, while others equally talented and equally motivated at the start fade out within months? This is not a question about natural gifts. Some of the most consistent performers I know are not the most naturally talented people in their domains. It's not a question about willpower or discipline in the traditional sense either, because those resources are finite and unreliable, and anyone who's building a long-term performance practice on willpower alone is building on sand. The answer, I believe, and the evidence strongly supports this, lies in identity, in mental frameworks, in the invisible psychological architecture that either supports or undermines sustained commitment. And that architecture is not fixed. It can be understood, it can be built, and it can be reinforced through deliberate practice in the same way that physical fitness can be built and maintained. That's what this episode is about, not a motivational speech, not platitudes about believing in yourself, but the actual science and practice of psychological staying power, what it is, where it comes from, and how you build it. I'm going to draw on research from sports psychology, cognitive science, behavioral economics, and my own experience working with and observing some genuinely remarkable sustained performers across athletics, business, creative work, and health. The through lines are more consistent than you might expect. Long-term consistency is not random. It is not purely a matter of talent or luck. It is a function of identifiable psychological factors that can be cultivated. And once you see those factors clearly, you can work on them with the same intentionality you'd apply to any other aspect of your training. Identity, the foundation of durable commitment. The single most important psychological factor in long term consistency, in my view and in the research, is identity, specifically, whether or not the behavior you're trying to sustain is integrated into your sense of who you are rather than being experienced as something you do, or worse, something you're trying to do. This distinction sounds simple, but its implications are enormous, and I don't think it gets anywhere near the attention it deserves in performance coaching or in self help literature. When a behavior is external to your identity, your relationship to it is motivational, which means it's dependent on the presence of motivation to sustain it. You go to the gym because you want to lose weight. You eat well because you're on a health kick. You practice mindfulness because you read that it reduces stress. And these are extrinsic drivers, and they have a well-documented shelf life. When the initial emotional energy of the goal fades, and it always does, there's nothing structural holding the behavior in place. The behavior was always instrumental to something else, and when the drive toward that something else diminishes, the behavior goes with it. Identity level commitment works completely differently. When you are an athlete, not just when you train like one, but when that label is genuinely part of how you understand yourself, the behavior of training is not a means to an end. It's an expression of who you are. Missing training doesn't just feel inconvenient, it feels like a violation of self. That's not obsession or unhealthy rigidity. It's the natural consequence of having integrated a behavior so deeply into your identity that it becomes self-reinforcing. James Clear has written about this beautifully in the context of habit formation, but the concept goes much deeper than habits. It's about the narrative you carry about yourself and whether your daily choices are consistent with or in conflict with that narrative. How identity shifts the mechanism of change. Understand.
Get business done with the new American Express Graphite Business Cash Unlimited card. With unlimited 2% cash back on all eligible purchases, unlimited 5% cash back on flights and prepaid hotels booked through American Express Travel Online, and a flexible spending capacity that can grow with your business, you'll have the confidence to keep building. Apply today and earn a welcome offer of $1,500 cash back after you spend $50,000 in qualifying purchases on your new card within the first 6 months of card membership. Terms apply. Learn more at go.amex/graphite.
This episode is brought to you by Workday. Guessing is for game shows, not your business, especially when your margin for error is zero. Workday is the enterprise AI platform for HR, finance, and IT, with a deep understanding of your organization's context and guardrails. So every AI action is permission aware, giving you accuracy 24/7 and the ability to not just get work done, but get it done right. It's a new Workday.
At Ollie, we've got wellness down to a science. From PMS to pregnancy to menopause, our women's wellness line offers science-backed support for every stage. No judgment, no shame, none of the stigma. Just supplements designed to meet you wherever you're at. Ollie, choose science over shame. Find support at a retailer near you or on ollie.com. That's OLLY.com.
At REI Co-op, we've got the gear that makes camp easy. A tent that sets up in seconds. A chair you could fall asleep in. A cooler that keeps things chill. So you can get to the good stuff. Late night laughs, endless stars, and stories you'll tell again and again. REI Co-op. Camp solved. Shop in-store or at rei.com.
Understanding that identity is the foundation is only useful if you know how identity actually shifts. Because for most people, the idea that they can simply decide to have a different identity and have that decision stick is not a realistic experience. Identity is not a declaration, it's an accumulation. It is built through repeated evidence, through the small, consistent actions that you take day after day that provide proof to yourself of who you are. This is why the smallest habits done consistently are psychologically more powerful than large but inconsistent efforts. Every time you show up to train when you don't feel like it, you are casting a vote for the identity of someone who trains consistently. Every time you choose the aligned food choice when the easier option is available, you cast a vote for the identity of someone who takes their nutrition seriously. Every time you do your recovery protocol, even when you're tired and it feels boring, you cast a vote for the identity of someone who honors the full performance process. These individual actions are not significant in isolation, but accumulated over weeks and months, they create an undeniable body of evidence, both to yourself and in your actual behavior patterns, that builds and reinforces the identity you're aiming for. The implication is important and counterintuitive. The path to identity change runs through action, not through belief. You don't need to feel like an athlete before you act like one. You act like one repeatedly, and eventually the feeling and the self concept follow the action. This is why waiting until you're ready or until you believe in yourself is a trap. The belief comes from the doing, the identity emerges from the evidence. Start with the smallest possible action that is consistent with the identity you want to build, and do it without fail. That is the mechanism. Everything else is decoration. Resilience, why some people bounce forward. Resilience is a word that gets used so frequently in performance contexts that I worry it's lost much of its meaning. People say, be resilient the way they say, be positive, as if it's simply a matter of deciding to adopt the trait. But resilience is not an attitude, it's a skill set, and like all skills, it can be developed through deliberate practice. Understanding what resilience actually is at a mechanistic level is the first step to building more of it. The research definition I find most useful distinguishes between two types of resilience. Reactive resilience is the ability to recover from adversity, to return to baseline after a setback, an injury, a failure, or a disruption. Proactive resilience is the ability to anticipate adversity and prepare for it in ways that reduce its impact when it arrives. Elite performers tend to operate in both modes simultaneously, but the proactive dimension is the one that is most systematically underdeveloped in most people's mental training. We spend a lot of time thinking about how to succeed. We spend almost no time systematically preparing ourselves for the inevitable failures, setbacks, and hard patches that every sustained performance journey includes. One of the most effective tools I've encountered for proactive resilience building is a practice borrowed from Stoic philosophy and adapted for modern performance contexts, what some researchers call defensive pessimism, or what I prefer to call adversity rehearsal. The practice involves deliberately imagining in specific detail the obstacles and setbacks that could disrupt your commitment. It's an injury, a period of poor results, a major life disruption, and then mentally rehearsing your response. Not catastrophizing, but clear-eyed preparation. When you have already played the film of the hard scenario in your mind and decided how you will respond, the scenario has far less power to derail you when it actually arrives. You've already made the decision. The hard moment becomes an execution problem rather than a decision problem, and that shift changes everything. Cognitive endurance, the often ignored mental fitness component. When people talk about mental toughness in athletic contexts, they almost always mean the ability to push through physical discomfort, to keep going when your body is screaming at you to stop. That is real and important, but there is another dimension of mental performance that rarely gets addressed systematically, and it might be even more relevant for the sustained, years-long kind of commitment I'm describing. In this episode, that dimension is cognitive endurance. The capacity to maintain high-quality attention, decision-making, and motivation over extended time periods and through extended stress. Cognitive endurance is different from the acute mental toughness of a hard training session. It's the ability to maintain your values and priorities on a Tuesday afternoon in month 8 of a training year. When nothing is particularly exciting, the progress feels slow, and a dozen easier options are available. It's the mental durability to keep making aligned decisions when you're tired, stressed, emotionally depleted, or bored, which is most of the time for most high performers trying to sustain something significant over years. This is where the majority of long-term consistency battles are actually won or lost. Not in the peak moments of motivation, in the ordinary, grinding, unglamorous middle. The research on decision fatigue is directly relevant here. The quality of your self-regulatory decisions degrades meaningfully as the day progresses and as your cognitive resources are depleted by other demands. This means that structuring your behavioral environment to reduce the number of decisions required, automating the important behaviors through scheduling, preparation, and environmental design is not laziness. It's cognitive resource management. The highest performing people I know protect their best cognitive energy for their most important work, and they systematically reduce the decision load around their performance habits so that those habits run on structure rather than in the moment motivation. That is cognitive endurance management in practice. The role of process focus and sustained motivation.
If data management is slowing down your business, you need the Intuit ERP. If one entity is here, and one here, and one here, and one here, you need the Intuit ERP. If scaling your business feels like starting over, you need the Intuit ERP. Intuit Enterprise Suite is the AI-native ERP solution that consolidates, migrates, and automates, all in one place. Learn more at intuit.com/ERP.
This episode is brought to you by Adobe Firefly, the all-in-one creative studio with AI-powered image and video generation. Built for today's creative process, Firefly helps you generate, edit, and experiment fast. Because the asks aren't getting smaller, and the timelines? Woo, yeah, still tight. With all the best creative AI models in one place, Firefly brings your ideas to life. Learn more at adobe.com/firefly.
Amazon Health AI presents Painful Thoughts.
Why did I search the internet for answers to my cold sore problem? Now I'm stuck down a rabbit hole filled with images of alarmingly graphic sores in various stages of ooze. I can clear my search history, but I can never unsee that.
Don't go down the rabbit hole. Amazon Health AI gets you the right care, fast. Healthcare just got less painful.
Frizz, breakage, or split ends? Meet your match. The K18 Molecular Repair Hair Mask delivers real, lasting repair. Its patented K18 peptide reverses damage on the molecular level, leaving hair soft, strong, and bouncy in just 4 minutes. So that damage that's been stressing you out, you'll see it disappear after just one use of the mask. Shop at Sephora or get 10% off your first purchase with code SPOTIFY at k18hair.com.
One of the most reliable predictors of long-term sustained motivation that emerges from the sports psychology literature is what researchers call task orientation, or what I prefer to call process focus. This is the orientation of a performer whose primary psychological reward comes from the quality and depth of their engagement with the process itself, rather than from outcomes, rankings, external validation, or comparisons to others. Process-focused performers find the work intrinsically rewarding. They are continuously motivated by the question of what they can learn, how well they can execute, and how much they can grow, independent of whether those improvements translate into visible results in the short term. This contrasts with ego orientation, the orientation of a performer whose motivation is primarily driven by proving their ability relative to others or achieving specific outcome-based goals. Ego-oriented motivation is not inherently bad. It can be highly effective in the short term and can drive impressive performances. But it is structurally fragile. It is dependent on success, on favorable comparisons, and on continuous positive reinforcement from the environment. When those conditions aren't met, when performance drops, when comparison is unfavorable, when the goal seems far away, ego-oriented motivation collapses. And because no sustained performance journey is a straight line, performers who rely primarily on ego orientation almost inevitably hit periods where their motivation evaporates. The practical implication is that building process focus is one of the highest leverage investments you can make in your long-term performance psychology. The way to do this is to deliberately shift your attention and your internal scoring system away from outcomes and toward execution. What did you do well today? What did you learn? Where did you execute your process faithfully even when it was hard? And these are the questions that reinforce process focus, and asking them consistently, or in training logs and reflection practices in conversations, gradually rewires your motivational architecture toward the kind of intrinsic, self-sustaining engagement that makes decades of committed performance possible. The community factor, why environment is not optional. I want to address something that comes up consistently when I look at the long-term performance trajectories of genuinely sustained high performers. Something that doesn't fit neatly into the individualistic, self-optimization narrative that dominates most performance discourse. The community factor. Who you are around and what those people normalize is one of the most powerful determinants of your own sustained behavior. More powerful, in many cases, than your individual intention, planning, or willpower. Social norms are extraordinarily potent behavior shapers. We are deeply social animals, and our behavior is constantly calibrated, largely unconsciously, to what is normal and acceptable in our immediate social environment. If you are surrounded by people for whom training consistency, nutritional discipline, adequate sleep, and performance investment are normal, expected behaviors, those behaviors require much less active effort from you. The social environment does much of the regulatory work. If you are surrounded by people for whom those behaviors are unusual, excessive, or even worthy of mild ridicule, sustaining them requires a constant expenditure of energy, swimming against the current every single day. That is exhausting. And most people eventually stop swimming. This doesn't mean you need to abandon friendships or live in a training monastery. It means being honest about the social inputs that are supporting or undermining your long-term commitment, and being intentional about creating and maintaining connection with people who normalize the standards you're trying to hold. Online communities, training groups, accountability partners, coaches, mentors, all of these function as environmental anchors for your behavior. They are not optional luxuries for people who want a community. They are functional psychological infrastructure for sustained high performance. If you don't have them, building them is one of the highest leverage investments you can make in your own staying power. Managing the emotional reality of long-term performance. There is an emotional reality to long-term performance commitment that I think most performance literature handles with extraordinary superficiality. The reality is that sustained high-level commitment is emotionally demanding in ways that are rarely discussed openly. It involves frustration, doubt, periods of despair, the grief of things you sacrifice, the loneliness that can come with holding a high standard in a world that doesn't always understand why you do, and the specific psychological pain of working very hard and not seeing the results you expected on the timeline you anticipated. These are real experiences, not character flaws, and pretending they don't happen doesn't make you mentally tougher. It just makes you less prepared.
Hey parents, how do you make smarter choices for your kids' college today? That's where Sally can help. With Sally, you can find scholarships, funding options, tools, and guidance all in one place. And if you need a loan, Sally has options for different families and different situations. College is only worth it if you do it right. So don't just help your kid go. Help them go smarter. Sally.com/GoParents.
This episode is brought to you by Tidy Cats, here to level up your litter game with their new Performance Plus lineup. Your home is your happy place, your cats, VIPs. So when it comes to the litter box, excellence isn't optional. Choose from products that specialize in max power clumping, low tracking, or odor fighting so advanced, stink won't see it coming. Tidy Cats Performance Plus. Mission mighty, keep it tidy. Shop now at tidycats.com.
Choice Hotels get you more of what you value. Comfort Inn, it's calling your name. Save on the stay. Oh, and free waffles are yours to claim. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
Trying to be a bit more mindful of things you buy? For you and your family? Well, when it comes to laundry, choose All Free Clear. 100% free from dyes and perfumes. All Free Clear uses only essential ingredients that tackle tough stains and odors. And it's gentle on the skin. It's a powerful clean you can feel good about. So go on, pick up a bottle of All Free Clear for your next laundry day.
Emotional regulation, the capacity to experience difficult emotions without being driven by them into behaviorally destructive responses, is a core component of psychological staying power that is genuinely trainable. The approaches I've found most evidence-based and practically useful include acceptance-based strategies from acceptance and commitment therapy, which teach performers to acknowledge difficult emotions without fusion, to experience frustration or doubt without treating it as information that training is wrong, that you're not good enough, or that you should quit. The emotion is just an emotion. It is not a verdict. That distinction, consistently practiced, changes your relationship to the hard patches in a way that allows you to move through them rather than being stopped by them. I've also found enormous value in what I'd call a values clarification practice, a regular, explicit engagement with the question of why your commitment matters to you at a level deeper than goals or outcomes. Not why you want to be fit, but what being a person of this caliber of commitment says about who you are and what you value. When that foundation is clear and regularly revisited, it provides an anchor that holds when motivation fluctuates, when results disappoint, and when the easier path looks very attractive. Values don't fluctuate the way feelings do, and a practice built on values is structurally more durable than one built on feelings alone. The mental frameworks of the most consistent performers I know. Let me close the content portion of this episode by sharing the specific mental frameworks that I see operating most consistently in the highest performing, most sustainably committed people I have the privilege of knowing and working with. These aren't prescriptions. They're patterns that I've observed so reliably that I consider them hallmarks of the psychological profile of sustained high performance. The first is what I call a long view orientation, a genuine, practiced commitment to thinking in years and decades rather than weeks and months. These performers are not urgently trying to prove something right now. They understand that the returns on a consistent investment compound over time, and they have internalized that understanding deeply enough that they are not rattled by slow months or temporary plateaus. They are building something, and they know that buildings take longer than impulse purchases. The long view is not passive. It's an active orientation that they return to when short-term frustration arises. The second framework is what I'd call calibrated ambition, the capacity to hold high aspirations without being psychologically punished by the gap between where you are and where you want to be. This is a nuanced skill. Too little ambition and you lose the drive to grow. Too much identification with the gap between current and desired, and you live in a chronic state of inadequacy that is both demotivating and harmful. The most consistent performers I know hold their ambitions lightly. They use them as direction, not as measures of their current worth. They are as fully engaged with who they are today as they are excited about who they're becoming. That balance, present engagement with future aspiration, is one of the most psychologically sophisticated positions in performance, and it is genuinely learnable. The psychology of staying power. We've covered the full landscape of psychological staying power in this episode, Mawarri, and I want to leave you with what I consider the single most important practical takeaway. Everything we've discussed today, the identity, resilience, cognitive endurance, process focus, community, emotional regulation, mental frameworks, is learnable. None of it is fixed. None of it is determined by your genetics, your upbringing, or your past track record. The psychological infrastructure of sustained high performance can be built deliberately, one small action and one consistent decision at a time. The starting point is identity. Before you change your training program, your nutrition, your sleep habits, or any other behavioral variable, ask yourself who you are committed to being. Not what you want to achieve, but who you want to be. What does that person do daily without negotiation? Then start doing those things. Not because you feel like it, but because they are consistent with who you're becoming. Cast the votes, accumulate the evidence. Let the identity follow the action and let the motivation follow the identity. in my experience, that sequence, identity first, then behavior, then feeling, is the most reliable path to the kind of durable, self-sustaining commitment that produces extraordinary results over time. Thank you for being here for episode 3. In our final episode of this collection, we're going to get extremely practical and extremely specific. We're talking about precision recovery, the new frontier of performance optimization. Sleep technology, HRV intelligence, micro-recovery protocols, and my real-world tests of what actually moves the needle. If you've been doing the hard work of training and showing up consistently, this episode is going to be the one that helps you make sure you're actually harvesting the adaptation from that work.
I'm Hannah. I've lost 75 pounds in 20 months with GLP-1s, plus diet and exercise. On Row, I've gone from struggling to run a mile to running farther every day. You can access FDA-approved GLP-1s online. Get the support you need to reach your weight loss goals. Go to row.co/weight to see if you qualify. I'm a paid Row partner. 20% average weight loss in 1 year in non-diabetics with obesity or overweight with a weight-related medical condition versus 3.1% in placebo arm. RX only. To stay informed about serious side effects, go to row.co/safety.
Traditional home security only alerts you after a break-in, and that's too late. SimpliSafe is changing that.
Stop. This is SimpliSafe. Police are on the way.
We don't just alert, we stop crime before it starts. SimpliSafe, plan starting around $1 a day. Save 50% on your new system with professional monitoring at simplisafe.com/Spotify or with promo code Spotify.
Outdoor deterrence requires a SimpliSafe Active Guard outdoor protection plan starting at $49.99 a month. Visit simplisafe.com/licenses for alarm license information. Tennessee 2012.
Are thoughts about food, exercise, and your body taking up too much space in your brain? You aren't alone, and you don't have to live this way. Equip provides 100% virtual, evidence-based treatment for all diagnoses and all bodies. With Equip, you'll get a dedicated care team, including a therapist, medical provider, dietitian, and a recovery coach who has actually been in your shoes. Lasting recovery is possible. Visit equip.health to book a free consultation today.
Queen Carvania stood haloed by the morning sun. An army hung on her every word.
My champions, I have sold my chariot on Carvana. 'Twas a lovely SUV, an inexplicably queenly offer. They're even coming to the castle to collect it. Tonight, we feast! An offer you can feast on. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.